Hey guys, it's coffee
and tea, and we are here for the first reading of My Angelica. Coffee is going to read chapters 1 through 3 for us today, and I'm going to try my damnedest not to laugh over her words, because I can just feel inside of me the emotions. I'm gonna get my...
Okay. I am going to try my damnedest to keep a straight face so as not to mess up the reading too much, so everything is clear and you can fully experience this with us without me just losing my shit. I've been preparing for this my whole life, though. So, with that in mind, Chapter 1. I don't know if we mentioned that the book kind of goes back and forth between points of view of the two main characters, which is, once again, as a refresher, Sage Oliver and her would-be boyfriend George. Mm-hmm. So, Chapter 1 is Sage. So, Chapter 1. Okay, George, I said, listen to this. Another beginning, Sage? George asked me. We sat at a table outside the Schoolcraft High School cafeteria. Wow, struggling already. People milled around, calling hello, eating, laughing together. The smell of lunchroom food, tacos and hamburgers and school-made rolls rode an autumn breeze over to where we were. Sherry walked by with her new boyfriend and I waved. You edited that out, right? Sherry walked by with her new boyfriend and waved. I waved back, then turned to George. I nodded and smiled at him. Another beginning, I said. George sighed. Go ahead. I took a big breath and began to read my latest creation. Let me be frank, Angelica quipped, brushing her blacker-than-the-night hair out of her brighter-than-a-blue-sky eyes. The throng of press reporters looked at the tall, pug-nosed woman with the longing of a cow on a range of fresh grass. She twisted her silky/shiny hair around on one perfectly polished finger and then pointed with a jab to the group of men. Jab. It's all italicized and
it's all that like really early 90s young author font.
Okay. I don't know if you can see that. The A looked like an O. Okay. Sorry. I'll get better at this, I swear.
Remember, we're reading this as you do.
Yeah. They all gasped together. At the very same moment, a chorus of gaspers. The sound was almost snake-like. One stood out among the crowd. Angelica felt her heart drawn out of her body against her will. She gasped too. But her gasp was a feminine one. He was tall, young, and handsome. His bad brown eye wore a dark eye patch. His good brown eye rolled up and down, following Angelica's every movement. A television camera perched on his shoulder like a black and silver parrot. For a moment, Angelica was stunned to silence, watching the one-eyed cameraman. Then she found her voice and continued eloquently, richly, and deeply, like maple syrup straight from the brown bottle of Aunt Jemima. The story of Franklin murders I'm going to tell you is completely true, Angelica exploded. The one-eyed cameraman smiled, stretching his lips as thin as a slice of pepperoni when you look at it from the side. I had the photos and notes to prove my findings. She waved the thick stack of papers lightly about her head. A reporter has duty to always tell the truth, no matter how difficult. Angelica felt her voice tighten like a rubber band pulled from 100 miles away. It had been just over a year. It seemed so long ago, and yet, so close. This case has been especially hard for me, because... Angelica drew herself up tall and slender like a giraffe. Because Mr. Franklin was my beloved husband. Angelica put on her dead husband's favorite white gloves, and wiped a lone tear from her carefully made-up face. Not a bit of makeup smeared. She was exquisite in her pain, her deep, deep, deep pain. Because I always tell the truth, Angelica Franklin breathed frankly. I am the best in the journalistic field, and I am always frank. I am known as the Frank Franklin. Angelica could tell the one-eyed cameraman had not shaved in exactly 3 days. No more, no less. His whiskers had a gentle way about them, gentle yet firm. She wanted to leap into his wallet and find out his name. It took all of her willpower to turn away and begin the slide presentation that would surely change the world. I peered out over the top of my wrinkled papers and bit my lip. George stared at me. His mouth hung open a little. I wondered how long it would be before he was shaving every day. I could see him with a face full of dark whiskers, the lone reporter to sweep Angelica off her feet. No, to sweep me off my feet.
Oh.
That's it? He asked. I smiled and nodded, feeling a slow blush creep onto my cheeks. Angelica is my hero. I want to be just like her. That took you 3 days to write? I nodded again. For a moment, I was Angelica's twin. I, like she, could take the criticisms of my admirers. Leaning toward George, I imagined him in an eye patch. Sage, you told me you were creating a masterpiece for the last 3 days, and that's why we couldn't get together to study for the ACT. It's not that much longer before we're going to be taking the test. 2 years, I said, nodding again. I leaned a little closer to George. I could smell his clean skin. George blinked a long blink. 2 years what? He asked after a moment. Before we graduate from high school. One can't be too prepared, George said. His voice was soft, and it cracked. I love it when that happens. It seems to promise a full beard and a possible eye patch. And George can never be too prepared. He's not made that way. So? I asked. So? George asked back. I smiled. Ever since writing this chapter of Angelica's adventures, I've been practicing smiles in the mirror. Celebrity smiles. What about my book? What did you think? George took off his glasses and polished them with great care. They were shiny already, but he polished them anyways because I knew he didn't know how to tell me what was on his mind. My story was just too wonderful.
Right.
Oh, Sage, he said, and I could tell by his voice that his soul was touched by my writing. I gave him a practice smile, my best yet, I was sure. Be honest with me. And how could he not be, with this magnificent piece of literature still hanging in the sound waves around us? The truth hurts, George said. That's what your mom says. She's been saying it for years. George nodded. And I think she's right in this case. What do you mean by that? George's mom is a designer. You know, she makes other people's houses look nice. She's way into honesty. I'm not sure how designing floral wreaths and fancy curtains go along with honesty, but Mrs. Blandford seems to think they walk hand in hand. She's always saying that the truth hurts thing to George. It's crap, Sage. A-C word! A-C word.
A C word?
Oh! A C word!